listening to the home of cool, irreverent, and entertaining talk, right here on LA Talk Radio. You're listening to The Art of Love with your host, Lucia, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome to The Art of Love. My name is Lucia. I'm your host and a dating and relationship expert. And I'm here to entertain, educate, and enlighten you about love, dating, and relationships. Solve your dating dilemmas, take your live calls, answer your emails, and speak to authors and people who can give us great information about, of course, relationships, like the one wonderful woman I have on today. I actually know her, and I'm going to bring her on right now. It's going to be a very exciting show. If you're into the law of attraction, this is going to turn things upside down for you. Hello, Carole.
Hi, Lucia.
How are you doing?
So great to be on with you today. This is really a momentous occasion.
Finally.
After all these years.
I know, because I actually discovered you in 1998. And when
I was looking back then. My goodness, it's been a while.
I know, it's been a long and prosperous relationship. And when I started reading your materials, I felt like I'd been given the keys to the universe. Literally. Yeah. So
it's done differently than it's normally taught.
Well, I had never even heard about the law of attraction, so you were actually my first person that I heard it from, and but let me introduce you a bit. Let's see, you are an international speaker and a popular radio and TV talk show guest. In 1986, you discovered and developed a new creative procedure called PowerVision, an accelerated form of visualization which is applied through the heart rather than the mind. So,
this is it.
Yeah. So briefly explain your background and how you got into the field.
Well, I got into it because of a very tumultuous situation in my life, which a lot of people, I suppose, do. When you have no place else to go, you either go down or you find your power. And I decided to figure out how to survive and find my power, and that's what happened. It was because of a wonderful marriage that ended up disastrous, unfortunately. But it was at the late I guess it was right at the beginning of about 1980 that this all started to happen and unravel, and drugs were very prevalent at the time, especially cocaine, which a lot of people didn't even realize was that disastrous, but it was. And 4 years later, he managed to lose every single thing that we had, and I was trying to get out of the thing almost the whole time, but was very seriously ill. So I studied and tried to figure out how to come into my power almost the entire time, and fortunately, in the nick of time, it practically picked me up and pulled me out of a very chaotic experience and plopped me down into the most gorgeous, magnificent apartment overlooking the ocean in Newport Beach. And it was it was really dramatic at the time. I just did a technique that did it in about 3 weeks' time. And at the time that it happened, I had no money, no job. I was very ill, had gone bankrupt, and had nowhere else to go. And that was, and it's what it did. And I really did a visualization that just pretty much catapulted me to the next level. And it got my attention, and I wanted to know everything about it. And I started to really use it then on a whole other level, where I could really use it to not only seriously support myself in a way, not in teaching it, but in understanding how to attract everything that I needed to me. And I started to do it in a different way. I did it through the heart rather than through the mind, and then I started to teach it a year later.
Okay, so when you said it changed your life in 3 weeks, are you talking about the visualization through the heart?
I did a visualization that, it's a combination. It's a combination of a technique, which the one that I used for the apartment was actually the meditative technique at the time. But I teach so many different techniques. The meditative is one certainly I recommend for a person to get into into a new home, or to visualize themselves on vacation. That one's an easy one to do that on. But there's so many different techniques. and of course we're going to be talking about relationships today,
yes.
which is not exactly the one that I would be teaching for that one, but that's the one I use, but it's the energy behind it. And the energy behind it is going to be the part that's going to either, it will be the part that's going to give it such life that it's going to happen rather quickly, and it will be personalized for you. That's what got my attention. It was personalized for me. And it was all in synchronicity, and it was all greater than what it is that I had actually visualized in the first place. And I know a lot of times that's what people are a little bit concerned about. Is they're concerned about maybe visualizing something that possibly isn't for their highest good, or something that maybe they're going to choose the wrong way. This doesn't. When you're doing it, when you use the law of attraction correctly, and you're really doing it through the heart, it's always going to give you a greater outcome. It's always going to come in expanded, and it's always going to be personalized and really bring in something that's greater than just the thing itself. So it's an awesome. Our power is awesome. It really is, being able to really take advantage of using it. But it really is a fine line in using it correctly.
When The Secret first came out, and a lot of the authors, they were on the Larry King show, and people were calling in. They kept asking questions. Well, how does this work? And what do you mean? And said, well, you think about this and you think about that. And I was yelling at the TV. Actually, I was like, no, you have to use your feelings. They weren't giving the right answers.
Yeah, well, a lot of times what's happened with all of this, and that was pretty much a basic I think they were sort of basically giving people the idea of understanding that they had power.
Yeah. But
what's happened with a lot of this is that it's all really coming from the a lot of the teaching that was in the late 1800s, and then ever since then, people have really been taking that old teaching and making doing the same kind of language, teaching the same spiel over and over and over. Unfortunately, it wasn't taught correctly back then, so they keep repeating the old thing, and it's always done through the mind, and it's only going to go so far. It's just going to create so far, and a person's always going to be trying to do it by themselves, and then if they don't do it just right, then they question themselves, they question their life, they question life itself, their God or whatever,
everything.
and they start to actually go backwards instead of forwards after a while, because they're so busily analyzing and picking apart their life that it starts to become a detriment rather than an advantage to themselves.
Now, you talk about being at one with what you desire. Can you explain that a bit?
Well, that's going to be a key thing. What happens whenever we create anything? There's so many ways, like I say, to do it. You can either visualize it, you can write it down, you can speak your word. It creates a form. Whenever you write anything down or draw a picture of it or have clarity about something, it actually creates the formation of your desire, and then that form is implanted within your heart. Mm-hmm. And that is where you keep it alive. And so there's always two parts to everything. There's an inner essence and the outer form. When you realize that, then you're able to really pinpoint the energy and how to attract something to you. Because the goal really is energizing that form in your heart, and that form becomes magnetic and then draws to you the outer form itself. And that could be people, places, or things. So anytime you're at one with something, you're going to be drawing that thing to you very, very quickly, because you're knowing what you're doing. Most of the time, people are trying to think their way there, trying to program what they think is their subconscious in their mind, in their head. But actually, when you're talking about subconscious area, that's in your heart. And so they're all working in their head, mm-hmm. and it really about as far as they're going to get is a headache. It makes it very difficult to do. But I always explain the thing is that there's two parts to us as well. There's not just the intellect. We've got masculine and feminine energies, and the top three chakras are the masculine, and the lower three are the feminine. But the heart chakra is the masculine and the feminine, and that means that is the perfect place to create, because you put male, female together, it's like rabbits, right? they create. Right. They create. But if a person's trying to do it in their mind through the intellect, we're talking about doing this with just the male energy, and we haven't seen a man have a baby yet.
No,
this
almost.
is not going to happen. But boy, he's going to get real frustrated trying. And that's about what happens with all of this. So, people don't realize they have power, but then when they realize they do have it, then they try so hard to use it just right. But it becomes a snag after a while.
Right.
If they are doing it that way, if they are doing it through just the mind.
Yeah. I asked about, being at one with, because I don't know if you heard, this is going to sound really strange, but it's a true story, about this woman who fell in love with her bow and arrow.
Uh-huh. No, I did. I haven't heard that one.
Oh. I know, it sounds like a joke. It's a true story. She fell in
What's
love.
that?
There's
Really?
like
Okay.
like an illness or a sickness where people fall in love with objects. So she fell in love with her bow and arrow, and so of course she took up archery. And she went on to become Olympic, at the level of an Olympian, and she won a gold medal.
Oh, I can see that happening.
Yes,
definitely.
and she said she felt at one with her bow and arrow. She felt like the molecules from the bow and arrow and from her own body were like mixed together.
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing that's going to do it. Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And anything you love really does whisper its secrets to you, and it serves you. So that would definitely, you become the master over it. So that definitely does, that makes sense.
Yeah, and
Totally.
then when she fell out of love, she couldn't hit the bullseye anymore.
Mm-hmm. Oh, did she fall out of love with him?
Right. Yeah, she fell in love with like the Eiffel Tower. I know it sounds so crazy, but it's true. Now you said that we're not here to learn lessons, whereas everywhere you go, everyone says, "Oh, you need to learn a lesson. You need to learn a lesson."
I know. Oh boy. Well, okay. So here's the problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big problem with it. Period. There's a whole chapter in my book about this part, as you know, the one about warning. Looking for the lesson will be hazardous to your wealth.
Uh-huh.
So, okay, the book is called The Emergency Handbook for Getting Money Fast.
Yes,
in case anybody wonders what that is.
I have 2 copies.
But the reason there's a problem with this one. For many, many, many reasons. And first of all, basically, in order to be successful with creating anything in a person's life, they need to feel as though it's theirs already. You need to be thinking from it, not about it. And what people do when they start to understand their powers, they start to visualize something or focus on something or affirm it or, go towards something, and then it doesn't work, and they say, oh, wow, what did I do to create that? What's the lesson I need to learn from this? So instead of continuing to feeling as though it's theirs right now, which they want to do in the vision and also in their interaction with the physical world, you want to be feeling as though it's yours already. Mm-hmm. They start to analyze why it didn't work. Mm-hmm. And not only analyze why it didn't work, they want to learn a lesson as to why it didn't work too. So I always explain it's like taking the vision, going stab, 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 and kill, kill, kill the vision. Right. They're not going to just say it's not there. They're going to really tear it apart and make sure they don't feel like they have it. So that's one problem. Another problem is the fact that a person is continually trying to analyze the physical world, which is the part I say is the snag in this whole thing. They start to analyze it and pick it apart and start to realize that they're responsible for creating everything. And then if it doesn't look just right to them, they're going to analyze it and say, what did I do? What did I do wrong? What do I need to learn from this? Instead of realizing that this thing is probably changing to their benefit, something great is happening in all of it, they start to put more of a negative to a negative, which is going to create another negative. But if they were to be looking at it more from a place of, wow, there's something great's going to happen in this. This thing is going to bless me. This thing is going to there's going to be a gift in this. Mm-hmm. Then it becomes a positive, and when you put a positive to a negative, it creates a positive. That's the law of polarity. It has to work like that. So you start to use that to your advantage. But people really start to get to a point where they're so busy looking for lessons and feeling like they're being taught lessons, they're almost missing the pure joy of life itself, and they're too busy tearing it apart to really appreciate just every little aspect of it and not consider and perceive it all to be something that they've done wrong or something that life is doing that's wrong. Because if you let it keep evolving, it's probably going to get you to the next plateau. Mm-hmm. So and then the thing is that it's not like you don't learn things in the middle of it all. It's just that you're not learning from your own little limited perception, you actually want to tap into a greater, higher source that's actually coming through you, where the intuitive nature comes through, that you start to have profound realizations that are more multidimensional than just trying to tear apart a little physical third-dimensional picture that we are aware of.
Right. And
yeah, it becomes a greater learning experience where you're not trying to do it yourself.
Right.
I don't know if that.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense to me. I don't know about anybody else.
I'm sure it does to you. I hope it does, Carole.
I know all your material backwards and forwards.
I know.
Now, last summer, things started moving along in my career. I shot a pilot for a TV pilot, and other things were happening. And all of a sudden, my DVR stopped working, my computer stopped working, a doorknob fell off a door. It's like, when does that happen, that the doorknob falls off, and some other things. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And then I remembered one of your classes about falling apart is falling together. So explain what that means.
Yes. And that's just monumental to understand what to do when things like that happen, so you know how to get through that. And because really there's where people falter and they start to, again, judge themselves and judge life and wonder what the heck's going on. So, there's many ways to get around with that one. That's one of the big things that I do teach. And there's many reasons for things that fall apart, but the most important thing is if you perceive it to be great, it's going to come together better.
Oh, this is great. Everything's broken down.
It can certainly happen through very low vibrational energy. And that happens normally with people, though, that are really completely don't even realize they have any power. It's really a person. I don't think you can even go back to that stage. It's a person that really gets to the point. Like I remember when I was completely at the point of having no power at all in my marriage, when I was completely clueless that I had any.
Yeah.
At that point. Okay, I remember every single thing in the house falling apart, including the bathroom.
Okay.
Wow. Stuff up. Every single thing, but the vibration was so slowed down.
Yeah.
And I was so ill at the time, and it was a wonder I could even do anything. So, but that's from very slowed down vibrational energy that a person can experience that kind of an event. It can also happen when you're about ready to make a breakthrough, if you're at whole nother level of living in life where you really come into your power and you've been visualizing, and then all of a sudden things start to fall apart, and it's like you're ready to go from one plateau to the next, and that can happen too. But the key to all of it is raising the vibration. It doesn't make any difference. The key to it all is just raising the vibration. And what I mean by that is doing anything that just makes you feel wonderful. Shift the energy somehow, or rather, get yourself to a higher vibrational energy where you actually feel maybe things like gratitude or beautiful music or sunrises or sunsets or flowers, fragrances, music, singing, dancing. Laughter is one of the highest vibrational energies that there is. Connecting to a higher power and feeling loved all of the time. Anything you can find, shift that energy, and then focus on everything being together, and focus on what you do have that's together, and being grateful for what you do have, and it'll start to transform. The whole bottom line is focus on what you want.
Right.
And don't focus on the other. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me what was happening was things were moving along in my career, so I was breaking through to another level.
That's what it sounds like to me, for you, definitely, because if because you've been doing this, and you were obviously ready to go to another level with it all.
Yes.
And a lot of times what does happen is we won't let go of things unless it just...
unless they break.
It goes away. So pretty soon you end up with a new computer, the new car, the new home. Like, okay, I wasn't going to stop to do that, but I think this is pretty good.
Well, I just got the iPhone, and I wasn't planning on it, but my other phone was dying. I'm like, no.
Yeah, there you go, see? It's like
fine.
Some of these things can't even be in our experience because we're at a whole different vibration, so they have to go away, and then ones that match our vibration come into our experience. So that's usually what happens once you start to get to your power. That's the kind of expansion that happens in a person's life.
Great, then I'll be expecting a Maserati soon.
Yeah, with a man in it.
Yeah, or two. Okay, so let's talk about love.
Love.
Now, you say that you must love something if you you must love something in order to have control over it. So does that work with relationships?
Well, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
if you love a relationship correctly, then that relationship's going to be something that's going to be empowering to you and to the person. When a person doesn't love the relationship correctly, it'll drain it of its energy. So feelings are going to be the key, period. And anything in any manifestation of anything that's a person that has, and everybody's manifesting. No, it's not like people that don't know about it aren't manifesting. Every single person's manifesting. But the key to whether you're manifesting at a great level where these things are going to be strong and powerful and staying in your life is whether or not it's the type of feelings that you're giving them. And if you're giving them the kind of love that's an empowering love, it's going to give it more life, and it's going to be empowering to them. It's going to be empowering to you. It's going to bless everybody. If it's a love that's pulling and draining and attached, it's going to drain it of its energy, and it's going to go away. The thing is that emotional attachment is going to kill the vision, and it'll kill and drain anything that we are attached to of its life in the physical world. So, people have a tendency of getting emotionally attached to relationships. It doesn't mean that you don't get to have a wonderful, great love affair and the great love of your life, and that the love isn't passionate. It's actually more passionate, but it's not a love that you feel powerless in, and it's a love that actually strengthens you both. But it's where it's coming from that's going to be the key. If you're going to be trying to do the loving yourself, it's going to be more or less an attached love. But if you let it come through you, it empowers both of you.
What do you mean, let it come through you? Like,
I know. So this is going to be,
help us out.
Or
here.
you know the answer to that one.
Well,
but everything that I teach, I teach how to really connect to the higher source, and I don't care what that higher source is, but there's something greater coming through all of us. And I always recommend that that's the energy that you use to create with, and that you allow to create through you, and that power within us then that really moves through us. It gives us tremendous life, and that's what can really energize the form in your heart, so that you're not trying to energize it all by yourself. You can, but it's better if you do it this way, because it will create it in synchronicity real quickly, and it will also, especially if it's the love that's coming through you, that's empowering both you and the relationship, it comes through very, very powerfully, and it's going to be a very passionate love affair. It makes it much greater, and makes it so that you're not feeling like you're attached to the person, too. And they don't feel that they're not running for their life, too, feeling like something's trying to pull at them. Because I'll tell you what, they can feel it.
Yeah.
Even if you're not around, they can feel it. And it's a very sensitive energy, yeah.
Okay, so what should one do if they feel neglected in their relationship?
If they're feeling neglected in their relationship, I would say find something greater in your experience, because the person's not going to be the thing that's going to be. That's not. It's not about the relationship. They're just like something that is either empowering more of your experience in life and serving you on a greater level, or they're going to be pulling things from you. And if they're there as a detriment, you don't want that anyway. But your whole thing is about who you are, what you're doing, how you're serving, how you're blessing others, how you're the things that you're making your life the most important thing for yourself, and making your things that you're doing in your life the most interesting and most important, so that you can share those with others, including the relationship that you're in. If you have time to feel neglected, then you're not doing an awful lot with your valuable time that you can be doing for your own self, with your own life.
And isn't it also because maybe you're neglecting yourself, so it's just a reflection?
Say that again?
Isn't it also, could it be because you are neglecting yourself, so it's simply...
Well, there's definitely, yeah, that's true. You're neglecting the possibilities with your life. A lot of times what will happen with most of this, and the relationship area is certainly the tricky one. And, that's why I always teach money first.
Which we all need right now.
They need to get that one down first, because the other one's
money.
a luxury. Okay, the male female integration workshop is one that of course you know that I teach later on in the whole program, because you really need to know the other parts first to even get to this point.
Right.
But it all comes down to the masculine and feminine within a person, and the relationship that you're having on the inside, and the thought. You're hearing two voices practically. You're hearing an emotional voice and the intellectual voice, and most of the time people aren't paying too much attention to the emotional one, as they are just really not only neglecting it, but they're sort of being very what is the word? They're usually are being very critical of it continually and blaming it for whatever is happening, because it's the part of ourselves. The female side is the part that goes out and can be out of control at times. It's a part that if it feels abandoned or left out, it'll go stuff itself with food, or
spend money.
It'll do everything. It'll spend money faster than the male is trying to make it. It'll do everything that it's not supposed to be doing. Going on the phone, it'll be the one that procrastinates, and then it's always being admonished by the male energy. That's more of the parental side. So usually people are leading with their masculine energy and dragging the female behind, and that's why then it tries to go out and find the love of its life, so they can be feeling accepted and loved by somebody, because they're not getting it on the inside. So that all has to be understood and reconciled really before a person can achieve a very, very fulfilling relationship on the outside.
Yeah, whenever I see like someone in court that they've done something really bad and they look, scared and innocent, I think.
Wait, say that one more time. You muted out a little bit.
Okay, I said whenever I see someone, let's see, on TV and they show them in the courtroom and they've done something really bad.
Oh yeah.
And they look so scared and innocent. I think it's like the male went out and did the bad thing, and now there's the female in the courtroom.
Well, I know it's just the saddest thing, isn't it? Because that there's two parts to the people.
There's two people,
and you know very well that there's one side that did it, and the other side was like, "Wait a minute,
no, stop!"
And then you think, "Don't!" You just feel so badly for the other side, and then I love the part where they say, "Oh, the person's." There's nothing, there's nothing wrong with them. They're not mentally insane, or they're not mentally off their.
Yeah.
You think, oh my gosh, you don't even realize there's so many different voices going on inside that they very easily had gotten out of control with this thing. Yeah,
right.
Definitely. It's really to be understood. This whole thing really is.
Yeah.
Because how do you imprison half of that person in there?
Right.
You really need to. You know what? I told somebody the other day, and I really mean this. I've got the audio book is coming out of the emergency handbook, and it's just oh my
That's
gosh,
great.
Lucia, it's just so profound.
I can't wait.
I think it would melt Bin Laden's heart if he were still alive. Anyway, I want it to go in every prison there is.
Wow.
I absolutely want it to go in every prison.
Uh-huh.
It's just going to be so important. It's such an awesome thing, really giving people another way to go. It's so beautiful.
I believe it. Now, with some of your techniques, is it possible to make someone fall in love?
Is it possible to do what?
Is it possible to make someone fall in love?
It is absolutely possible. I'm not sure that's a good idea,
Or
you absolutely
to help
can
someone,
do so.
To help someone.
There's very many ways
help.
There's so many ways to use techniques to get into a love relationship, to really energize the one that you're in. Oh gosh.
Well, give us one. Which one is the best? Uh-huh. Which one would you say is the best one? Would you say the animated technique?
Oh my gosh, there's just so many numerous ways to do so. The first thing a person would do is, first of all, get clarity that they want to get into a relationship, period. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. If you have clarity and you really are ready for one, you're going to be getting into one. But most of the time, people aren't too clear. They'll say, I'm ready for a relationship, but then they'll look at themselves in the mirror and say, well, I really have to lose weight first, or I really don't have time for this. I have to do this or that. But they forget that part. They forget that they said that, and then they keep looking for this relationship, and then they think that it's because they aren't in shape. that they're not getting into one, when actually they said they aren't ready for one till they do get into shape. So they think that this is really validating that there's something wrong with themselves, when actually they just didn't have clarity. Because if you have clarity and say, okay, you know what, I'm fine right now and I can get into one, then they'll get into one. But if you seriously do want to get into shape, then realize that and say, okay, I'm not ready for one yet. And then don't judge the exterior and wonder why they're not there. Just realize you're not ready yet, and then when you are ready, they'll be there. So that's one thing. If you just have clarity, that's it. Another one is that, I go back to the fun times of manifesting them, and my girlfriends manifesting them, and my giving different things to people that are manifested. It's been so quick that it's done. I remember one time when I was honestly first beginning this whole thing and just getting out of the relationship that I was with, and had been in a couple little silly ones, but I was with a friend, and she had been through a bunch of she'd been through a very devastating divorce, and she was older, and we were driving somewhere, and she was going on and on and on. I think it happened 15 or 20 years before. I'll never find anybody. And I just yelled at her, and I said, for heaven's sakes, Anna-Leigh, don't you know you're magnetic? You're magnetic. That is the key. That's first off the key. And then I said, I'm ready for one now. And the next time I get into one, he's going to be big. That's what I said. Now the very next day, I was lying out at the pool. It was not even in a singles area. This was in a residential area with my neighbor, who was probably 25 years older. 30 years older at the time. We're laying out at the pool. We're the only ones in the pool. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning on a Monday morning. And I'm lying there on this raft with a hat over my head, and I'm hearing something at the gate, and he's yelling at my neighbor if she could come over, and he wanted to ask her a question. And I looked up, and here was this enormous man standing at the gate. Turned out he was a professional bodybuilder. And I looked up and I thought, oh my gosh, that's him.
There he is.
And I just peeked through the holes, and I thought, wow, that's him. And he wanted to use her phone. She got out of the pool, went to her place, came back again. He was gone, and I said, who was that? She told me, and I said, I'll tell you what, that stuffed, I had a stuffed chicken, I think, in my house. I said, you can have that if you set me up with that guy. And that was Jack. Remember Jack in my story?
I don't know. I don't remember Jack.
You remember Jack, the bodybuilder? That was.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember now.
Yeah. So that's how that one manifested. But there's just that was clarity. And boy, that was speaking the word. He was a great boy. He was like my fairy godfather. Got me out of bodily, moved me out of that place. Wow. Took a bodybuilder to do that. But I had a girlfriend that when we were doing all this together, and what she did, she wrote the qualities down on the card, and then she felt like she was drawing this person to herself. Now, of course, you have to be careful, because you know how we know this is you're at one with the essence, you're energizing the form in your heart, and then the outer form is drawn to you. So you want to remember there's two parts. That's how you're at one with somebody. Do it that way. And I don't think she was that clever, but she felt magnetic to the person. And then this man called her up, and then she said, I'm sorry, I'm not dating right now. And so she was very short with him. Then she kept taking the thing saying, draw the person to her like a magnet, and then this person would call her back again. I'm not dating. I tell you? 3 times. And she got very mad the last time and said to me, what do you think? You think that could be him? And I said, I don't know, why don't you go out with him? And she went out with him. They've been married now for many years.
Wow.
Many years, but it took a lot.
Yes.
She still couldn't mess it up. She kept drawing him to her.
Yeah, and
shut him down.
Right.
Poor guy. But I have.
What about
there's a way to do it when. Pardon me.
I was going to say, what about the animated technique? That seems quite easy.
There is the animated. There's a way you could do the animated technique. Certainly, you could do that. You could put the person in the room, and you could talk to the person. If you're in a relationship, or now here's one how you can be manipulative, and I really wouldn't recommend it, but
go ahead.
so you have to be a little bit careful with this.
Uh-oh.
You could, but the thing is that I think when a person realizes how much power they have in a relationship, they're not so frantic about the relationship anymore.
Right.
But when you have the animated technique, that really puts you in your power with a relationship, because if they look like they're getting distant, or they're not really paying attention to you, or you're really not hearing what, maybe they're not being considerate, or they're not, various things. You could put them in the room and you could speak to them. Now, you're talking about not them themselves. You're talking about their essence.
Right.
Room. And you're saying to them, I see you, and you could call them by name, as being, supportive and enthusiastic, and recognizing my great values, and being considerate, and always on time, and conscientious, and honest, and having integrity. You could say things like that, and then put your arms around them and say, I love you, and then feel them hugging you and loving you back. What you can't say is, I see you as falling in love with me and giving me a new Mercedes.
Darn.
And divorcing your wife. You can't do those kinds of things. But if you do it the right way, you'll give them such good energy that they're going to feel very drawn to you. And then I used to do it to one of the ones I had, and he'd call me every time I did it.
Wow.
Yeah, in fact, my relationship contemplation audio, which is actually takes it to a whole other level, because it does add the right energy into it. The night that I was recording that, I was actually had this person in mind, and I could hear the answering machine clicking on and off the entire time I'm trying to record, and it was him.
Wow. Trying to figure out what you're up to.
Yeah, well, I think, I got done at midnight. We went to a party right after that.
Wow, you have a lot of energy. Go to a party at midnight?
Didn't I? I still do, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be going to sleep at midnight.
What?
I said I'd be going to sleep at midnight.
Yeah, wouldn't you think? Oh, my goodness, but no. He was great fun.
Wow. Now, let's see, what other relationship questions do I have for you? What about what's happening on an energy level when someone doesn't want to commit?
Well, again, focus on what you want, and you see this person being open and ready to commit. Now, if they're not open and ready to commit, they're going to be more adverse looking than they were to begin with, and another one will come in that is open and ready to commit. But therein lies the problem. If a person says, I see myself in a relationship with someone that is open and ready to commit, or I see so-and-so is being ready and open to commit, if they do that in the animated technique, and then that person takes off, here's where the problem is. Then they look at that and they think, what's wrong with me? What do I need to learn from this? What's wrong with them? What do I need? They start to analyze the whole thing. That's when you go backwards. But if you realize that you want to stay clear, you want to stay focused on what do you want, and that you know that you do want somebody, and that you see yourself with somebody that's open and ready to commit, then you can allow that energy to move away, and then it allows the next person to come in that is ready and open to commit, and they can come in very quickly if you can stay at that energy and not buy into what the outer picture looks like and get into judgment, because it could look pretty bad, just like a car falling apart or the phone, it's falling apart. It can look pretty bad because it's not matching your energy anymore. It's going to have to fall apart and go away sometimes because we won't let go of it ourselves, and then that can look bad. But if a person stays on that negative energy and analyzes it, it doesn't let that transform and come into the next level.
I love how you say to just thumb your nose at the third dimension.
Yeah, you got to do that, because everything is happening in the fourth dimension, and that's where your vision lies, everything that you're focused upon. When you have the vision in your heart, and that form of it's already taking place in the non-physical world. That's the fourth dimension, and that fourth dimensional energy then takes place next in the third dimension. So the third dimension is always a secondary picture. And that's why you can thumb your nose at it, because you always recognize you're bigger than the picture. This is just a picture, and it's an old picture. And if you don't want the picture anymore and you're not impressed with it, you can focus on the new picture, live from there, and let this new picture then come into your experience, and you can start to experience it in your life.
Yeah, the third dimension is like yesterday's news.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But if you keep reading yesterday's news, keep giving it energy, you're going to keep experiencing yesterday's news. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, in the male-female integration course, you said that when a woman develops and expresses her male side, she becomes more feminine. How can that be?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I explain people, this is very powerful. When you blend male and female energies, that's really when you're in your power. That's when you really become very prosperous in your life. You're very productive in your life, and it's where you really start to soar in the world and you start to come into your power. And I try to give an example of who that would look like that has masculine and feminine energies that are blended together that people we know. Mm-hmm. And I think Goldie Hawn's a great example
right.
of that. And she's definitely, with her energy coming together, has got a great channel of energy. She was very productive. She has great lifestyle, and she's feminine, but she's powerful in her energy.
Mm-hmm.
She's not a masculine energy trying to make all this happen and try to make the success happen and try to do it all by herself. She's got a very feminine part to herself, and that's a real good example of that one. So definitely, you definitely when you come into it, you're able to embrace that, because really what happens when you're coming into masculine and feminine energy, you're really leading with your childlike energy anyway. Mm-hmm. That childlike energy is going to be the key. That's going to be the key to your success. It's your most valuable commodity. It's the part that lets your energy soar, and it's the part that puts you into synchronicity, because the energy then is expansive, and your childlike energy then is in the guiding position. If it's not in the guiding position and it's being drugged behind, that's the part that's then going to invert, and it's the part that's going to try and pull off of the physical world and try to get high off of the third dimensional things in the physical world, off of food and off of relationships and drugs, sex, and rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
It's all that. That's where it's coming from. It's always a female, that childlike energy trying to pull from the physical. But if you have that in the guiding position, then it's high off of really off of the life flow itself, of the passion that starts to come through you. Your energy is very powerful at that point. It is also an energy that is very what is the word? This is a very desirous to
magnetic?
Other people.
Magnetic?
So if you were to be in a relationship, if you go out with someone and they sense that energy, everybody wants to be around it and they want to be a part of it. They sense that it's very empowered, and it's not a part of you that's pulling on them to get their power from them. It's a part that's really very confident, and it's coming through you. And everybody wants to be around that. Everybody wants to be a part of it. And that's why it's a very prosperous energy, whereas a person would become very successful when they have that kind of an energy.
Is that why you say the most...
In relationships and in business. Pardon me?
Is that why you say the most important thing you can do is just go out and have fun?
Well, I said that if you want to create your desires, and what I said, it's very easy to do is write down what you want and go out and have a good time.
Right, same thing.
Said. In other words, create the form and raise the vibration. That's basically it.
Right. You mentioned synchronicity, and once I started using your, materials, I began to have more and more synchronistic events, and now it's to the point where I have synchronicity with words, which is kind of weird, because let's say I'll be maybe reading a word or thinking a word, and all of a sudden, if the radio or the TV is on, like a split second later, that person on the radio or TV will say the same word.
It does it all the time. It does it really for everybody all the time, because words are magnetic to themselves anyway. But, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It does it all the time for me, too.
Yeah, so every time it happens, I think, okay, good, that means I'm in sync. I'm synchronized.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm not off course. Okay, so you also mentioned sprouts. So what are sprouts?
Well, the sprouts are the things that's like when you envision something and you really focus on what it is that you desire, however you do that, whatever it's for, the next thing is to go in the direction of it. And if you do that and you go in the direction of it, you're going to start to see little things that are going to come up that are going to guide you step by step toward what it is that you're focused on getting. And those are the sprouts that you want to follow. Those are very important, is to do that. And when you're able to be more aware of those sprouts when you've raised your vibration. It's a little hard to see it if a person's trying to do it through their mind, if they're trying to think their way there, if they're trying to be serious about any of this. That's not going to happen. If a person's doing that, again, they're trying to do it with their masculine energy, with just their intellect. They're going to try and do it by themselves, and that's just going to take you so far. Even if you create something, it's going to come in and it's going to go right back out again. And it takes a lot longer to do it. So that's not going to work. That it'll work, but it's not going to be advantageous to do it that way. But if you are coming from doing it through the heart and you're doing really expanding the energy, raising the vibration, getting into synchronicity, it works really quickly, and you start to become much more intuitive, and you can see those little things that start to pop up and start to guide you and lead the way. And they're fun to follow. It's like a treasure hunt. It really becomes a great fun journey toward your vision, rather than trying to visualize and focus on something over and over and affirm it over and over and then wonder where it is and why it's not happening yet.
Right. Going back to synchronicity for a second, I just realized it's like with parking spaces. Why is it like with synchronistic events, it seems to happen like right at the last second? Like I pull up to some place and someone is just pulling out. It's like, well, why couldn't they pulled out
great? It's just like everything really is in synchronicity. We have to do a lot to get out of the way of that. But for some reason, when you're driving, it seems like it's easier to get into synchronicity. I think people become aware more that those parking places are there, and now the more that they become aware, the more confident they are, the easier that is, and the more that they just sort of let that happen, and it always opens up right there for them, and it's become something that they've really had just become very used to, and it becomes very normal because our needs are met. And it's the same with every single area of our life. It isn't, it'll happen on everything. It's just that they've been accustomed to doing it that way, but it can happen for absolutely everything. And it does if we just get out of the way.
Yeah, when I start to do it with parking spaces at my gym, because there's like 4 levels of parking, and of course I want to park on the lower level, and so I start to get parking on the lower level all the time. It was before I would never get parking.
Oh
there.
yeah, I thought I have my own parking place in many areas, including San Francisco, in New York. I got them all over the place in a very specific spot.
Yeah.
My spot.
That's right.
Everywhere I go, and it's always there. It's amazing.
I know.
Love it.
Another thing you always say, which I found really empowering, was you said that the universe is always expanding and trying to make your life better, whereas people think that the universe is out to get them.
Yeah, and that's going to be the problem with that is that that's the highest form of creativity, is what is our concept of the universe or God, because everything really is being created from that perception. And if that perception is clouded, and if that perception is always about that there's something that's over you, judging you, looking at you, analyzing you, testing you, then you're going to have that experience all of the time, and life will just be a drudgery to get through. And it's always like somebody's looking over your shoulder, and you got to be perfect to obtain any type of blessing or to do anything, do anything right. And that's all coming from a person's misperceived concept of this, because that's just not happening. The only thing that's happening is that their male energy has taken on that kind of a situation where it's really doing the judging and the analyzing and all of that. It's all about that part. But that's going to shift about once you start to change your attitude about what life is, and that recognizing that there's just a power of love coming through everything, and that we're already perfect. We're already blessed.
Yes. And
nothing's waiting for us to get better. It's already there, and that's what we focus into and start to experience. Fortunately, the core is whole. Otherwise, we'd have a heck of a time trying to get there ourselves.
Right. And, of course, we're blessed to have you. helping us to get there. We've come to the end of the show, unfortunately. Your website is caroledore.com, and of course we're going to have the link on the archive page. So just briefly tell people what's on there. I know there's a million products you have, and they're all great, and I have all of them almost. But what's on there for the people that don't know?
What's what?
What's on your website? What items do you offer?
Oh, goodness. Okay. You can go to caroledore.com. You can go to createmoneyfast.com. My phone number is 1-800-40-POWER. And the way to start really is a visualization, the Power of Your Heart audio program. Now, that program it's the foundation. And right now, that's where you start. Absolutely. There's going to be the audiobook's going to come out this month of the Emergency Handbook. Oh, Lucia, I'm telling you, this thing is golden. It is such a treasure.
I bet.
It's got gorgeous music throughout it, so it's really high vibrational. So that's going to be awesome. There is the book, the Emergency Handbook for Getting Money Fast. It has been sold out now for quite some time. I have some left. They're available in combination packages. They are definitely a collector's item at this point. I don't know if you know, Lucia, but last year or so ago they were selling, the cheapest you could get it was $700 for people that were selling used copies. Yeah, they were paying as high as $1,200 for that book.
Well,
so I've been recording it ever since. And yeah, hold on to yours. It's a collector's
I'm going to
item.
sell it for $2,000.
I know. You know what? These are going to go up higher once the audio book comes out. I'm not kidding. It's really a phenomenal thing, and because it doesn't just go into money, of course, as you know. It's got everything in there, and it just really teaches you how to use this at a much greater level than trying to do it through the mind. But the contemplations will enhance it all. Those are key. They put you on synchronicity, and you can put them in the car and let it create through you. That's the way to go. Let it be done in synchronicity. So yeah,
Great.
Lots of goodies, lots of great things for doing it through the heart.
I know. Well, thank you so much for being on. Unfortunately, we have to go. We're over time here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Lucia. What
guest.
a great show you've got.
Oh, thank you. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye. All right, that was Carole Dore at caroledore.com. I need to get out of here, but before I go, I just want to remind you that love inspires, empowers, uplifts, and enlightens.
You're listening to The Art of Love with your host, Lucia, right here on LA Talk Radio.